Hey, hey, y'all.
Hi.
Welcome,
Hi.
These are so dirty.
welcome. How y'all doing?
Doing well. How are
Good. How are
you?
y'all?
Can you hear me
Doing
okay?
well, doing well. Yeah.
Good to see
Welcome,
you.
welcome. Yes, good to see you, ladies. Welcome to Wealthy and Worthy Wednesday, y'all. we
We're
in
here.
the building today. And listen, today, y'all, we got a pretty juicy topic, okay?
Indeed,
Because
indeed.
today, look, we're talking about a topic today that I feel like we've had and I've had in smaller circles, more intimate circles, but um not like publicly, right? Like where we're
Mhm.
just naming the thing and talking about the thing. All right. So today we're talking about a topic again that may feel a little uncomfortable for some of you. All right. And that's totally fair and it's totally cool, right? But it's one that I believe and am wholly convinced that we need to have, right? So for generations, Black women, right, we have been taught how to survive. We've been taught to be grateful, to work hard, sometimes twice as hard as everybody else, right, to get a chance, right, at even getting the same things, right? We've been taught to not ask for too much, not be too much, to stay humble, to make sure everyone and everything is taken care of first, to be loyal, to be long suffering, to
Mhm.
push through, even when it means being in discomfort ourselves, right? And while many of these messages may have been intentionally taught, a lot of them were probably caught, and some of them may have even been rooted in love, protection, and maybe just a sheer need to survive, right? And all of that is fair. However, we want to be clear today and talk about the cost, right? And how it cost us the very things that we have now worked so hard to build, right? As high achieving women, we know that wealth is way more than just money. It's about having choices. It's about having peace. It's about living with intention and allowing our yes to be yes and our no's to be no, right? It's about flourishing through healthy relationships. It's about having bodies that can carry us through life, right? That will allow us to have longevity, to enjoy the lives that we work so hard to create, right? It's about protecting what is important to us, having clear boundaries, being rooted and grounded in what we value, right? And what we want, and it's about having the freedom to experience the life that you've worked so hard to create for yourself. And that is the core of Wealthy and Worthy. That is why we gather and why we have our resident experts here, right? To talk about mental health, to talk about relationship health, to talk about our physiological health, right? Our bodies, right? And so today, we are going to explore some of the subtle ways that Black women are conditioned really away from lives of total abundance and more towards overworking, self sacrificing, and survival. All right. So take a deep breath, right? Because that is a lot. It's a lot, and it's a heavy conversation, but it's one that we have to have. And so nothing that we're going to be sharing or discussing today is about shame or blame. It's strictly about taking an honest look at where you are compared to where you want to be or hope to be, and recognizing that you can't be free if you're not honest. And so we want to submit these ideas and concepts and thoughts to you all today, for you to ponder and sit with, but also let us know, right? Like what's coming up for you? How have you experienced it in your world, right? So, ladies, all right, we about to talk about the thing, okay? So, as I mentioned, right, as Black women, we're often taught messages that I think we talked about this last week, Jeannie, of like being responsible, right?
Yes.
Having this desire to be responsible, be the responsible one. And when we are sent these messages, right, to be respectful, be loving, even when people aren't loving towards us, right?
Mhm.
Things like work harder, stay humble, don't be too much, don't ask for too much. Looking back in your own life, right? And you can even reflect in your practice, right? What messages do you believe Black women are still carrying that may be quietly limiting their ability to experience true wealth and true abundance and to feel worthy of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's so many spaces here.
Yeah.
Messaging, I think let's just start there, right? And the message is often very clear, and it's also one that is it's breaking and it's burdensome. It's this idea of like you need to exist inside of a very clear consistency in order to earn a reputation that you are a reliable person. And any deviation from the way that you have started to show up exists as inconsistency and says something about you and who you are. The other messaging is there's no room for you to fail. You have to exist inside of this very clear perfectionism state because your counterparts will see that failure as weakness and they will not find you worthy of newer opportunity. And so you've got to not only commit to whatever it is that you've decided on as far as your avenue for success is concerned, but you also have to succeed in that. And if you don't succeed in that, that success will be the reputation that you will have gained that will follow you throughout the entirety of your career and your work. The other messaging is, like you said, I mean, you said it so clearly, and I'm pretty sure every single Black person has heard this in their entire lives. We have to work twice as hard to get half as much, right? And that's the issue is I've got to run myself into the ground. That's the only way I'm going to be noticed. That's the only way that I'm going to be valued. That's the only way that my productivity will count. And so, how has this affected their ability to acquire abundance? Well, we all know that high degrees of abundance often don't come in doing the safe thing. It comes in having a higher ability to tolerate risk. It comes in diversified methods of earning income. And if you are of the mindset that I've chosen this direction, I'm not adding in three other directions that could potentially produce for me more freedom in my life and um, more understanding as a whole of what my gifts look like. So we become hyper focused on the one thing, hyper focused on doing that one thing very well and not failing at it. And so we get stuck.
Ooh, baby. You listen, thank you for that. I mean, I love everything about what you just said. And also, like, just from our conversation this week, saw myself in that, right? Like the conversation of like where I was like, never in a million years did I think I'd be doing XYZ, right? Like I was totally content, building building this thing over here. And people kept asking me, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that, right? Like I'm good at this thing, and that's the thing I'm gonna do. And then I'm up at 3 a.m. texting you last night because I can't sleep because I'm taking this leap, like it's like, oh my gosh, like this is new. This is, it is that diversification that you mentioned of like realizing that I can own the fullness of who God created me to be, and I can show up in these different spaces, even if they don't, seem to track my pedigree or my experience or my training even, right? Like not hyper fixating on that is really, really how we do receive the abundance that we desire and deserve. So listen, whew, I'm right here with y'all. Okay. I'm right here with y'all in real time. Okay. So we are not, excuse me, having this conversation or sharing these things from a place of like, we have arrived and so you should, follow suit. It's like, no, we are actively working through these things ourselves, and are honest enough to just be like, this is the real, like, this is how it be sometimes, you know what I mean? And as I said before, no guilt, no shame, but it's just like, this is what it is, right? But the beautiful part about that is we have each other. And that's what we want for y'all, right? Somebody that you can text at 3 a.m. and be like, I'm so lit right now because my life has been moving at light speed and I'm not really sure what's happening next. Like, that's the reality sometimes when you are moving into a space of receiving.
Absolutely. You need that. You need someone in your life to say, the excitement is so deeply warranted, and to encourage you and being connected to something new, and also to say to you, but also remember to take care of yourself. If it persists too long, add some things in and make sure you get that sleep, and make sure you're taking care of your body, because we do. There is this now, like I've got to act on this now, right now. And that's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. But sometimes like the body follows suit, the nervous system follows suit, and it will overwhelm you at times. This is all coming, and it came out of nowhere, and it's an incredible experience, and it will run. It will go well. You don't have to push or fight or, go against the ease that you had to attract it, right? It came because you're there, because it's
That's
yours.
true.
So that
I
too.
love that. I love that. Thank you for saying that. And
Yeah.
we're dovetailing it into the body, right? The nervous system following. So that makes me want to kick it over to Dr. J, right? So Dr. J, like from your perspective, as a physician, how do you see this survival-based messaging show up in our bodies, right? The physical patterns when women are spending sometimes years, decades, right? In the push through, the overperforming, the self-abandonment. How are you seeing that, and what is this is what I want you to share too. What is your approach to responding to that? Because I do want our viewers to learn more about your style and your approach as you encounter those things.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think, especially when I speak to my patients, they are so ready to do the work, right? They're like, oh, just tell me what I need to do. What are we gonna do? Yeah, I just want to like lose this weight. I want to get my energy back. I want to get back to how I used to be because, this is not working. And, I have an approach of, like rolling with my patients. Um, and what I mean by that is I don't really push. I'm very cautious not to push a specific agenda on them, but I listen to what they need. And even I have to be able to listen beneath the surface. So when a woman comes to me, she's like, I just need to do it. I need to do the things. Okay, I just want to get to the work. I take a couple steps back because I know like really deep inside what she needs is more groundedness, right? Because she is so hyper fixated on the doing. And when they, especially that first appointment, I help track them back to their why. Like, why do you want to change your body? Like, what is the purpose? And then I have to get to like multiple layers, right? Because there is something underneath that is motivating them that they're not really aware of, right? And so, usually just like, I want to lose weight because I don't, feel good in my body. I'm like, okay, well, why is that? Well, because back in the past, I used to feel good. Well, why is that? Well, honestly, I see my mother and I see that she is not able to, she hasn't really cared for herself when she was young, and I don't want to be like my mom. Right. And so I'm like, okay, all right. So that is where we are. Right. And so I think that's so important because anytime they are feeling discouraged or they feel like, the work isn't working, because that's the thing, we are looking at the result. It's like, where is my Excel spreadsheet? Let me check.
Yes.
And when they're getting to those moments of discouragement, I go back to that, right? I go back to that why. It's like, okay, this is how you feel right now. You're thinking that you're not making progress because, your body composition analysis is not favorable to you. But let's look at the ways that you have changed, right? Because it's so easy to overlook our progress, right? And so I had to say, okay, let's look at the progress that you have made, and then also let's come back to your why.
Mm.
Are you moving in the direction of like why you wanted to do this in the first place? Like,
Yeah.
is your progress congruent with your why? Right. And then that is usually like a light bulb, like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize, I was actually changing and I'm actually moving in the direction of my why, right? Because they're focusing, okay, are the pounds are down, the muscle is up. And I'm not saying that those are not important, but in the beginning, there's just like so much stuff, we have to move through. And I feel like constantly I'm coming back to a place of helping them remain grounded in their why, because that is really the motivator, right? It's not like, for some people, it's not just like, okay, I want the scale to move down. It's just like, oh, I want to live my life in a way, for the example that I provided, I want to live my life in a way where I can make a generational change, where, I am able to move my body in a way that provides me with not just longevity, but vitality, where I don't have to be physically limited to a walking device, right? Where I can be able to move freely, right? And so like that for some people is that deeper why. And they're, unafraid to, say that, because it's all about like snatch waist. And listen, I ain't ashamed to snatch waist, okay? I ain't shaming that. But there is a level deeper of your change, and helping the patient bring that out and also show them how they are moving in alignment with their why is what's going to motivate them to change their life and have more healthier habits, greater longevity and vitality, for the rest of their life, and also be an example to, family members, friends. And so that is my approach, is just always creating, those posts like, okay, let's stop, let's go back to our why. Okay, let's actually look at the progress we've made. Okay, all right, let's keep on going. And so
Right.
always just showing them, okay, you are on the right track. Like, you are doing what you really want to do right now. And I'm showing you this, and just keep on going.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Okay. So you anchor them in the data. You like, okay,
Yes.
this is what I'm seeing. This is what is actually happening, not how you feel about what's happening. That is super, super important. That's super
Yeah.
important because the data doesn't lie. So I love that. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. So as we kind of opened up today, right, we talked about, or I pointed out the fact that there is absolutely a cost, right, associated with being in this space, right, where you are in survival mode, but you also may not. I actually have a lot of clients who don't realize that that is where they're at, and they call it just like burnout, or they'll say things like, I just need a vacation, or I need retail therapy, right? And and those things do not resolve that feeling, right, that they have. And what they don't realize often is that they just have been in such survival that they reach this place of accomplishment, and they look around and they're like, now what? Right? Like, I can't begin to tell you how many people, clients specifically, that have pursued PhDs, they get there, they get into the tenured position and all the things, and they're crying in our session because it doesn't feel like what they thought it would feel like. It didn't massage or soothe the soul ache that they actually have, right? When they're not living in congruence with their why, which you pointed out, Dr. J. And so what I often am able to quickly see as misalignment, right? When what we're doing does not align with what we value or what we even really want to be doing. But they will call it burnout, right? So either way, no matter what we call it, there's a cost associated with it, right? And so I want us to ground the community in that, right? So passing it back to you, Jay, like, what is the cost emotionally when a woman is constantly prioritizing everybody else's needs before her own? Like, how does it impact identity and self-worth, and our ability to receive, like we just mentioned?
Okay. Ask me the question again. I want to hear it again so I make sure because this is so important. I want to make sure I hit all the points here.
Absolutely. So we're framing it around like the cost, right? The cost of
Right.
staying in survival or being in survival and not realizing you're in survival. Like, what is the cost emotionally when they're constantly prioritizing everybody else above themselves? Like, how does it
Absolutely.
impact identity, self-worth, and our ability to receive?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think first, the emotional cost is oftentimes, women are in this strained space of like heightened anxiety pretty consistently. They're building this narrative that I come last in some ways. And as you talked about, you can be quite detached from that understanding for a while. But once you start to see the consequences and you start to see the external cost, it's hard to ignore, right? I can only say for so long that I understand my place inside of my family and I understand my worth and value inside of my family, outside of just my ability to produce when I'm watching myself only being seen as valuable through my production. So, meaning, I get the love and care and support and validation from my partner only in times where I show up cooking, cleaning, doing, etc. I don't necessarily receive that outside of it. I mean, that's feedback that you can ignore for a while, but not for the rest of your life, generally speaking.
Right.
So, there's this immense emotional disconnect in that way. Oftentimes I mean, and I know this is like going to sound like sort of counterintuitive, but numbness is also an emotional state, right? This inability to feel, this inability to center your own experience of the world around you and have a clear picture of your internal workings. So that too is a part of some of the women that I see. In the worst cases, I see women who are highly depressive, who frankly have this sort of baseline sadness, this baseline um, and an uncertainty about where it's coming from as well. So that I do feel down often. I do struggle to have a sense of pride. I do struggle with when something good happens, feeling attached to that. Actually, something good happens, or I've worked towards something good, and then I'm just on to the next. I'm not even really in a celebratory place when the things that I've worked so hard for come to fruition. And that's a difficult space because when we are looking to be motivated, when we're looking for where we are most deeply attached in our lives and what like purpose really truly means, oftentimes it's the excitement. Oftentimes it's the joy. Oftentimes it's the elation that is the signal that we're on the right path. So when you're sort of closed off to that, how can you truly live inside of abundance? I don't even have the cues that I'm even on the right path, let alone that this is the path to abundance, that this is the path to my freedom. So that disconnect is really very detrimental. And then you asked the question of how it relates in identity. Well, it erodes identity, right? My identity doesn't become about who I am. It becomes again consistently about what I can produce. It becomes again about how can I be consistent in what I've presented my whole life versus how can I in my journey with identity that is supposed to shift and change, that is supposed to be malleable, because that's why we have this great, big, beautiful world. It's to have all these incredible experiences and to change our mind again and again and again. But if I can't do that, if I'm so fixated on having to be the same person and not change and not shift, and if I do, I'm punished for it, or if I do, I feel an invalidation about my entire experience of my own existence, then I'm going to struggle a ton with that. And the biggest and greatest struggle is that I never get to figure it out. I never really get the chance to, at my most authentic, at the heart of hearts of who I am, I never really get to relate to that. And that is crushing. So I
It's
mean,
hard.
when they're with me and they're talking about these things, it's very difficult. I mean, I have an example of a client that I've worked with who's extremely well off, very wealthy woman, does extremely well for herself, has a partner who lives in the same space and who wants to go, who wants to do so many other things, but her identity is deeply tied to her work and the reputation she's built at that work and the level of freedom that it's given her since she, grew from a child who was very highly contained and abused by her family. And, she keeps creating these milestones to leave. She's like, well, there's this place where if I get here, then I'm gonna, once I retire, then I get all of my stocks and all of my everything from the company. It just doesn't make sense to leave before then. Meanwhile, she's deeply unhappy. And the sacrifice is
Dang.
her happiness.
Yeah.
Her happiness for a figure, for a number.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about that last week with the retirement, the golden handcuffs. Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. Jesus. Okay, so the cost is an erosion of identity. My
Or
God.
a never discovering true identity at all.
Mm,
I see it as an erosion in that, you're sort of born in and placed in having all of these inclinations, right? And this is the struggle with the trauma we experience as women, as Black women, as people, as a whole in a society that like wants us to be something. And if we can be that something, we're more easily exploitable, right? So like but you start off knowing, I think there's just like such a knowing that we have that we're moving towards as littles. From the beginning, we're moving towards ourselves and our most authentic spaces. And the thought is you should try your best to keep that, to hold on to that as best you can. So follow those inclinations with reckless abandonment, right? With this like courage in some ways. And then it's just chipped away at. No, don't do that. You got to go to college because having a college degree will get you that job. And oh, you can't choose that subject because if you choose that subject, it's going to be difficult for you to make money in that subject. Oh, okay, so you're in that job, you've got the job now, well, we've got to pay back those student loans that you took out because you didn't have enough money when you went to school. And here we are again, just erosions, 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 erosions. I remember talking to my grandma about this too. She was talking about how difficult it was to be an artist. And I said, well, not so much anymore, right? You could be an art curator, you could, own a gallery, you could be a freelance writer, sell your own stuff. Like we've created all these avenues of freedom, but they are not the standard.
right.
They're anomalies. And so
Yeah.
those little erosions of choosing, constantly choosing for the sake of survival, for the sake of safety, for the sake of upholding the systemic way of being that will
Yeah.
create safety, as they say. So yeah, there's erosion or there's just never really being there, never really getting there. And it's painful to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
And
painful.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all know. Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, Dr. J, what are we seeing show up as a cost of the chronic stress, the carrying responsibilities that we weren't meant to carry alone?
Yeah, I know that so I'll talk about like how it affects individually in our bodies, and then also how it impacts generation, because as we're talking about wealth,
Yeah.
um health is certainly part of that. And the way that we interact with our health also impacts, how we interact with our wealth as well. And so, the cost of that is, just being on this constant hamster wheel. And with being on that constant go, 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 we don't really get to experience how it really feels to nourish ourselves from a nutritional standpoint, nourish ourselves from a place of movement. A lot of people think, oh, yeah, like I'm going to exercise to lose weight. Actually, exercise is not for losing weight. Exercise is for, optimal health, right? Because we know
Right.
that it helps with cognition. It helps with just longevity. It helps with, focus, concentration.
Mhm.
It helps to, decrease depressive symptoms, right? And so all of that is a part of exercise.
Yeah.
And, given all the benefits that just moving our body has, and, we do not move our body, like we are robbing ourselves of those benefits as well.
Mhm.
um and then, just internally, what stress does, it impacts our hormones. It impacts the way that we store fat, right? Making it harder,
Yeah.
making it more to accumulate in our bodies. It makes it more difficult to release. And this type of fat, can be inflammatory. So now we have bodies that, are ridden with this inflammatory response, that keeps
Mm.
on rearing its ugly head on itself, right? Because,
Yeah.
the more stress, the more that impacts the way that we accumulate fat. And if we don't find a break to it, we just end in a constant state of inflammation in our bodies. And that becomes really difficult to, reverse as it continues to persist, right? Um, and then along with that, comes, the mental health aspect of it, right? With depression, anxiety, that can also come into play. And so, these are all these things that can affect our bodies internally. And then, a lot of, when I come into contact with women, they are um, very much concerned with how they function and how that impacts other people, right? And so if you are the woman in the household, like the way that you function impacts everybody else, whether you believe it or not, right? And so if even if you have kids or you don't have children, right? But if you have people always seeing you in a constant state of survival, then the way that they interact with you is always going to be like, okay, well, she knows what to do because she always puts in the work, and that's what they're going to expect from you. But if you learn how to place those boundaries for yourself where you're like, okay, well, this is my time for me, people, their interaction with you is also going to be different, right? They're going to respect that, okay, you are taking the time to take care of yourself. And that also that places you in a place of being a role model, to other
Yeah.
women that you come into contact with. Because how many times is it difficult for us to say no, or I cannot do this, right? This is something that I'm working on, is like the back to back meetings. You know what I mean? And, especially as me, I am also building a family now. I have to realize, wait, that worked when I was, single and by myself doing these back-to-back meetings, because I still need to care for myself, number one. And I also still need to care for myself in the context of this family.
Yeah.
And so the dynamic changes as you go through these different seasons of life. And you have to recognize, okay, well, what boundaries am I going to put in place given this season of life that I'm in, so that I can able to pour into myself, so I don't end up into this, chronic state of, inflammation, or chronic state of poor health and impaired mobility, right? And so It's making sure that we are nourishing ourselves, individually, right? Through, putting in the right foods in our body, making sure that we're moving, making sure that we have the right relationships, right? Because that's also another sense of nourishment as well, making sure that we are connecting with people who pour into us. And then also recognizing the season that you're in. You can't operate the same way in different seasons, right? And so there are certain seasons where you may have to, cut back just a little bit more in order for it to give the season what it requires. And so that you don't end up burning yourself, over, and this constant state of, to what you were saying, Jeannie, this constant state of productivity. So, yeah, it's, making sure that we're individually fed, and making sure that, the season that we're in, it also doesn't place us in a sense of, also contributing to poor health and mental health.
Yeah. Jeez. Listen, y'all, it's a cost. It's a cost, all right? And we got to be very honest about that, because we cannot change what we do not acknowledge. So, being very clear that these things have implications, and whether you choose to acknowledge it and deal with it, or whether you choose to ignore it, they're both still choices. So, listen, we are encouraging you and emboldening you to do the thing, okay? To take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You deserve it. So, all right, y'all, as we wrap this up, right? We all agree that wealth is much bigger than money, right? So, I want to shift a little bit to talk about having a truly wealthy life, what does it look like for Black women, right? And what are we trying to build beyond income? I will go first. For me, just for me as a person, not just even my private community, for me, it is freedom, time freedom, and money freedom. That has been on my to-do for a long time now, over a decade. Because I'm just like, if it ain't free, I don't want it. Like, I need some freedom. So as you all think about that, right? Like, both of you, right? Whether mindset shifts or physical wealth, like, what is needed? Like, what do you see as truly wealthy for Black women?
Yeah, for me, it's allowing ourselves to be supported. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, if you're in a, place in your life where you feel like your life is not able to support your goals, your dreams, your aspiration, then, to me, that is not wealth, right? If you are in a relationship where you feel like you are not supported, that is not wealth to me. If you are in a career where you feel like you cannot be supported, then that's not wealth to me. And the reason I say that is because, for Black women, we are so used to, back to your point, Jeannie, the productivity, right? We're so used to doing and relying on us to get things done. And I'm not saying that is not important, but it's also making sure that you are living a life that supports you, right? That supports you, that really allows you to connect with your true desires. That is support, right? And so if you're living a life where you're like, okay, my dreams are not fed here, my goals are not fed here, my aspiration is not fed here, that is not wealth. And so and I think a lot of that, it feels risky. It feels risky to say, you know what, I don't feel supported here, so I'm a go. I'm a
Yeah.
go, right? It's easier. It's much easier to stay and bear the burden, but then we're so used to the burden. It's just like, no. It's just like, forget the burden, okay? Like, forget it. And so allowing yourself to, remove that burden from yourself and saying, you know what, I don't feel supported here, so I'm going to leave. that is wealth. That is wealth to me,
love that.
in
I
every
love
aspect of life.
I love that. I love that so much. Come on, listen, leaving because you want to, okay? Yes, I love that. What you got, Jay?
Oh, I have what is what is health? What is wealth? Wealth is emotionally, mental health wise, psychologically. It is having the clearest picture of what exists as your most authentic self, moment to moment, and being able to live aligned with that, aligned with the wants of that version of yourself, align with the needs of that version of yourself, align with the mission to ensure that in those moments you honor what's coming up for you and you honor it wholeheartedly with conviction. I think that's the deepest form of mental health, and the people who live the healthiest lives and appear to be most deeply connected to themselves are those who understand that that is all there is to move authentically, to be authentic. Um, that's where the wealth is for me. I want to be the type of person who understands exactly where I am, who I am, uh, in every moment, in every circumstance, and honors that.
I love
So,
that. I
yeah,
love
I want that for every woman, every person on
Yes,
this entire earth, because it is so detrimental when people are living a lie.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of that, listen, that's why we're having Wealthy and Worthy, all right, in Atlanta this summer, August 21st through the 23rd. We are gathering, our community of experts are gathering to support women who want to lead, live, and build wealth differently. And so we are just super thrilled. The early bird tickets are still on sale through July 1st. So you don't got much time. But you can still pop on over, capture that 20% off, and we cannot wait to see y'all in Atlanta. So as we close, ladies, we doing our round robin, all right? So I would love for each of you to imagine the Black woman who is going to watch this back on the replay, because listen, our audience of busy Black women, they always watch the replay, which is fine as long as you're getting it, okay? You're going to get these gems, okay? But if, as you imagine them, right, and she's beginning to realize that some of the beliefs that maybe she's been carrying about success and sacrifice and what it takes to make it, right, or even survival, like are maybe not serving her anymore. What is one belief that you would encourage her to release, and what would you encourage her to replace it with?
Hmm. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. What is one belief that you would encourage her to release? And then what would you encourage her to replace that belief with?
Okay.
I'd have her release the belief that the way to interact with her life is from a constant place of fear
Mm,
and through chasing stability.
wow.
And I would ask her to take in the belief, or even if it couldn't be a belief, to start to build the narrative and ask for signs. And if she's a universe person or someone who believes in God, pray for um, signs that support the narrative that this life is about creation.
Mm,
Because when we create, and we create unabashedly, we know and we understand that it's coming from us. It's coming from our hearts, and it doesn't need to be contained or controlled. So
yeah,
I'd ask her to leave room for that.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yes, and I would say I would want her to release that um the belief that health is about being disciplined and doing more.
Mm,
Um and I would like her to receive. Are we doing release and receive?
Yeah, what would you want her to replace it with?
Replace. I'd want her to replace that health is more about making space or identifying the things in her life that's not allowing her to take up the space that she desires.
Okay.
I like that. How about you? What do you think, Doc?
I do like that a lot, actually. I want you to release the belief that you have to do everything yourself.
Mm.
And that includes healing, figuring out how to unlearn the survival, patterns that you have acquired in the journey. Yes, the individual work is necessary, the therapy, the counseling, the prayer, the church, all the things.
Yeah.
However, there is a incredible level of healing that happens when you are in community and you have the courage to be witnessed and to have others and for you to witness others. And it can't happen any other way. Like I don't have a better way to describe it, but it is such a gift.
It really is.
To be in community and to be seen, and I think what stops a lot of us from being in community is a fear of being seen trying.
Ooh, yeah. Because of that risk, if we're seen trying and we fail, people have to be, they're alerted to that as well. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. I see that a lot.
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah.
Yeah. So
that experience, yeah.
So that is what I would want you to release if you're watching this back. And let us know, what comes up for you as you're watching this back on the replay. Those of you who are here live, Dr. Muna, we see you. Jennifer, we see you. Y'all are representing for the LinkedIn squad.
Hello.
So we're super glad to have y'all here, and we're just so thankful that y'all continue to rock with us every Wednesday. And we really hope that this conversation reminds you that wealth is just not simply what is in your bank account, y'all. It's not. It is your ability and your divine right to fully experience your life in health and in peace and in strong and supportive relationships, right? And if we are honest, some of these things were just inherited, right? The intergenerational trauma is a real thing, right? Like we know that exists. However, as a scientist, we also know that post-traumatic growth exists, which is the concept or the theory that trauma can pass from one generation to another for up to 7 generations, but it actually only takes one generation to break.
Yes. Say that louder. One more time. Right? I need you to say that once more.
I got to ground y'all in the data, all right? Because I love when science proves God right, okay? Yes, it is been scientifically proven, right? That trauma can reach as far as 7 generations. But if it is addressed, confronted, and absorbed, it can be eradicated in 1 generation. When I learned about that theory during the pandemic, it revolutionized my life. Like I was like, all it takes is 1.
Yeah.
Jesus came for the 1.
Absolutely.
So listen, we want y'all to experience this, right? Because you deserve it. And so if it resonated with y'all, we really want to see y'all this August. We want to see y'all in Atlanta. Come and join us at Wealthy and Worthy Mastermind this August. We're about 2 months out. Our team is gearing up. Our event planners in place. Like we doing the things, okay? And we want you to be a part of it, not from a place of hustle, but from a place of wholeness.
Mhm.
Okay? We deserve to live in that space. And so if you're thinking about joining us, look, now is the time. You got 2 months, get them good prices on them flights. And head on over to wealthyworthy.org to grab your seat. All right. So thank you so much, as always, for joining in and tuning in and participating in the chat and on the Instagram. Our fellas, we be having the gentlemen come in
They come in
every week, and we appreciate y'all for real. And so we will see y'all next Wednesday, same place, same time. Have the best day.